Joining us now is OjyOkpe with stories trending around the world. Hello, Janek.
Good morning, Dr. Abati.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Fantastic. Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning,
Ayomi.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's
what I'm going to start calling you. Yeah. Good morning, Rufai.
Morning, how are you? How are you?
Fantastic.
Stay stronger.
I will. Well, all right. Good morning to you, viewers. Here are some of the stories that are trending across the globe.
In the United States, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari met with President Joe Biden in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday on the sidelines of the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit. Photos shared by the presidency show both presidents in a meeting with Anthony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State, and Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey Onyema, among other dignitaries. Buhari departed Abuja on Sunday to join other African leaders for the summit aimed at rebooting U.S. relations with the African continent. Then, Tanitoluwa Adewumi, the 12-year-old Nigerian refugee who won the New York State Chess Championship in 2019, and his family have been granted asylum by the United States government. Tani's family had fled Nigeria to seek religious asylum on account of the Boko Haram crisis in 2017. At the young age of 8, Tani made headlines after winning the 2019 New York Chess Championship by defeating 73 other opponents while living in a homeless center. In the United Kingdom, the Charity Commission on Wednesday granted consent for the University of Cambridge to return 116 Benin bronzes taken by the British Armed Forces during the sacking of Benin City in 1879 to Nigeria. The legal ownership of the artifacts, according to the commission, will be transferred from Cambridge University's Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology to the Nigerian National Commission for Museums and Monuments. Under sports, France beat Africa's first ever World Cup semi-finalist, Morocco, 2-0, ending their historic run in competition on Wednesday. The French team will play a much-anticipated final match with Argentina on Sunday in front of the country's president, Emmanuel Macron. France is looking to become the first team to retain the title since Brazil in 1962, while Argentina is on a mission to win football's ultimate prize for the third time in what is likely to be Lionel Messi's last World Cup. Finally, under entertainment, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's highly anticipated docu-series, Harry and Meghan, which premiered last week, has already broken Netflix records. Volume 1 of the show debuted with 81.55 million hours viewed, the highest view hours of any documentary title in a premiere week, according to Netflix. The docu-series, helmed by Oscar-nominated director Les Garbos, is also the #2 English series being streamed globally and has appeared in the top 10 TV list in 85 countries, including the United Kingdom.
It's a dirty game. The pain and suffering of women marrying into this institution, this feeding frenzy. No one knows the full truth.
Well, let's begin what's trending. Presidential candidates of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and his People's Democratic Party counterpart, Atiku Abubakar, were absent on Wednesday as Labour Party's presidential candidate Peter Obi and Rabiu Kwankwaso of the New Nigeria People's Party joined others to sign an agreement on inclusive governance. Organizers of the event, Women in Politics Forum, Youth Hub Africa, and Inclusive Friends Association said the agreement was a consolidated agenda to be used as an advocacy tool in the 2023 general election and beyond. Labour Party candidate Peter Obi, who spoke at the event, decried poor representation of women and youth in the administration of the country, stating that Nigeria cannot progress when the most productive demography are left out of government, promising that his administration, if elected in 2023, will commit to the affirmative action on women and youth.
I'm committed to women education. I'm committed to ensuring that women are inclusive beyond the percentage, Rosia. Our government will be dominated by women and youths. And I'm committed to ensuring that those with disabilities, I've always preached, don't look down on anybody unless you're trying to lift the person up. And I'll lift them up.
No, Dr. Abati, this event was for the top 4 presidential candidates to attend, and it's appalling that, it was just the 2 of them on this very important topic. We are seeing these presidential candidates just disregarding Nigeria as a whole in this type of way.
Well, I'm sure the candidates who were not there, they would have to, explain why they were not there. However, this was the second event taking place within the space of about 2 months. There was one before now, led by Dr. Afolabi Akiyode, and at that event, they came up with a document called Manifesto, at which they asked the various political parties to submit, to assert, to commit to ensuring inclusiveness. And now you have this second effort by another group, also talking about, that's Buki Shonibaredia, talking about inclusive governance. Now, the idea of inclusive governance is very important to the extent that Nigeria, for example, is a signatory to the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, 1990. Nigeria is also a signatory to other things that talk about inclusiveness. And if you look at the Nigerian Constitution, 1999, Section 42 thereof, it talks about equality and non-discrimination, either on the basis of gender or on the basis of circumstances of birth or religion. In 2006, Nigeria, in fact, came up with a national gender policy. So every election cycle, we talk about inclusive government. Inclusive, in this case, involving persons living with disabilities, involving youth, involving women. And you have groups like this, always reminding us of affirmative action, 35% affirmative action. And Nigeria is far behind. Senegal has about 57%. Rwanda has close to 50%. But Nigeria is just around 5%. Which is a scandal. So that's why this kind of conversation is important. And in the various agenda that, these groups in civil society bring up, they're asking for, representation of women in decision-making positions, in cabinet positions, political parties involving women, and not restricting them to the distribution of refreshment at political events or the women wing, where they dance to welcome male members. The inclusion of youths, and also the inclusion of persons living with disabilities. And of course, one of the achievements of this administration is that this president passed that prohibition against discrimination of persons with disabilities law. So the people pushing for affirmative action, they have a strong case. But the issue is, will Nigeria do it? In 2016, we came up with a revised national gender policy, 2016 to 2026. Somebody had to go to court to force the Nigerian government to implement that policy. Judgment was given in April, that particular gender policy should be implemented. Who is implementing it? So that's why it's important that we ought to continue to remind the politicians and the political parties about inclusion and about the fact that this is even a matter of law and human rights as properly spelled out in the various protocols, the Constitution, the African Charter on Peoples and Human Rights, and also various international conventions to which Nigeria is signatory.
Yes, Rabiu Kwankwaso during the event also talked about the effect of inclusive government. He talked about how Nigerians are making waves in several countries across the globe and how inclusive government is the surest way for rapid growth. Absolutely.
Research has shown that when you have a more inclusive government, you have a more empowered government. You have a government that's more effective. Unfortunately, as Dr. Abati has reeled out the legislature, the advocacy plans, the policies and all that have been signed, especially when we talk about inclusive inclusivity. It's important to note that it's not just for women, it's also for persons living with disability. In a country like Nigeria, it's also speaking to the young people. The question I was going to ask the presidential candidate of the PDP, Waziri Atiku Abubakar, is he's committed in his campaigns. He's talked a lot about inclusivity, especially with regards to young people and women. He's even said he would invest $10 million in providing jobs for this sector. And I would like to understand why he wasn't there, he wasn't present to sign it. And then I'd also like to pose a question to the presidential candidates. And I think beyond presidential candidates, as we've seen, even the gubernatorial candidates, because when it comes to representation, it's not just an appointment at federal level, it's an appointment across levels, from state level, local government level, because these are the decision makers. We need to have a more representative government. And I think that's, these are key questions to ask. The only thing I was going to ask for the presidential candidates are, what are their plans and policies towards persons living with disabilities? These are a group of people in Nigeria who have been neglected for too long, and it's time we started to speak about it.
Well said, Ayo. Rufai.
Oji, I'm not surprised that people wouldn't sign that document. You know why? You should ask them, have they been able to sign the peace accord in the first place?
That's another question.
Truth has to be said. See, culture will eat strategy for breakfast, and we deceive ourselves too much. We pay lip service to laws that affect people in our society, that talks to things about inclusiveness. We put all the laws in place, but we cannot implement it because we don't have a culture that cares for the downtrodden in society. We don't have a culture that cares for women and children, no matter the laws we've been able to put in place. And that's why you see a woman is disadvantaged in society. People living with disability are disadvantaged in society, and society moves on as though nothing is happening. It is a society that destroys its own weak. You are put on the ground in this country because you are weak. Dr. Abadi talked about President signing that Disability Act. I'm sure he remembers what happened in the National Assembly afterwards. How people living with disability had to go protest in the National Assembly and they were beaten blue-black.
I remember that story.
You remember Paralympians? That they were protesting in Lagos?
Yes.
That they were tear-gassed and beaten. These are people that went out there and won medals for this country, where able-bodied people disappointed this country. So that's the way we are wired. And I'm not surprised some presidential candidate don't sign it. It's all lip service. It's all election talk. But the question is, how can we go from this step to truly signing things like this? And not just signing it because I want to sign it, implementing it because it affects all of us. We forget one way or the other. No matter who you are, you face some certain level of disability in your life. If you pray to grow old, you will face some certain level of disability in your life. Nobody asked for it, but it happens. How can we adapt this into our society? Where are the strong laws, for instance, for ramps into offices, for ramps into public buildings and banks and the likes? Where are those laws? I have sat on many panels and commissions as regards this to advocate for people living with disability, which even extends beyond even disability that might have happened, but even congenital disability in the first place. Children living with autism and some spectrum, challenges. What are the laws there? Do our hospitals even have counseling centers for parents that have children living with disability and autism and things like that? So it's society that downplays its poor. Nigerian society is so wired that it is only the rich it favors. If you are poor, if you're disadvantaged, go away. And that's why we must start to change culture to be able to ensure that the poor people are amplified. Ayo, you know the privileges disabled people get in the UK. There's even a funny joke people make in the UK, and you know that joke, that sometimes people wish that they were even disabled. Because you get parking space preferences. You get all sorts of preferences, even more than able-bodied people. Except we start to do that here, we're not ready. So I'm not surprised.
Well said, Rufai. Well, as Peter Obi and Rabiu Kwankwaso joined others to sign an agreement on inclusive governance on Wednesday, a crowd of supporters converged on the Trade Fair complex in Mina, Niger State, to declare support for the All Progressives Congress presidential candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Tinubu, while thanking the crowd for their support, in a video that has now gone viral on social media, attempted to recite Christian and Muslim prayers at the same time, eliciting several reactions. Let's take a look.
Awuzu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of our Lord, the magnificent, the Father of all, the ruler, the greatest.
Okay, Dr. Abate, I know we're all cracking up. But wait, no, we can't take our next story because this is a story that is trending on social media. I'll take one reaction that I just got, that he was trying to translate what he said in Arabic into English and couldn't even do that. Dr. Abate.
In the name of Amen. That's a new one, isn't it? Yeah,
but the thing is that he's also... Can this man let me...
I thought you say amen at the end of a prayer.
But he's also, his wife is a Christian, right? And he's always, it was refreshing to see that he could pray in both religions. But I don't know your thoughts about this story.
Well, I'm just as speechless as Dr. Abate, and there isn't much to say. The truth is that when we bring up videos like this, it's almost as if people are saying, but he keeps giving us. He keeps at every, now it's so bad that at every campaign ground, we're not looking at him discussing, we're looking for the next social media trending video. It's very unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate. I mean, you can make the argument for him that people can make mistakes. He's a human being. He has, he can make errors, but this is an error, one error becoming too many. Yes. Too many. So, I mean, I have nothing to... Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that he was trying to show his, the fact that he's very balanced religiously and that he can pray, like he said, both in a Muslim way and in a Christian way.
I thought it was refreshing to see that. Rufai.
So, from my little Muslim knowledge, I mean, you might correct me. What is a A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim? All right. So, from my little Muslim knowledge, and this is me, that my father was a Muslim for 75 years before he converted at his deathbed. So, and this is me that, did read a little bit of the Tira. But, I mean, what do I know? This is not even only what has happened. And this is me speaking this objectively. You heard what happened yesterday, that the campaign was abruptly stopped, and a certain newspaper reported that it was just few couple of lines, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you. Although there's been a lot of rebuttals that, he had other engagements, but it was abruptly stopped. I've also heard some other rebuttals that, maybe the stage was about to fall, but it abruptly stopped. There have been a lot of this gaffes, been a lot of this moments, been a lot of this, he should check his health. I think it's incumbent, and going forward, I know it might not be possible in this election cycle. I think it's incumbent for us in the next election cycle to ensure that all presidential candidates release their health records. We can't afford to go through this. I keep citing the case of Umar Musa Yar'Adua. You remember that famous call, Umaru, I said, I thought you were dead. I'm alive. And the man did die in office. It is time for us to be able to be transparent across board, for those that seek the highest office in the land, to be able to release their medical records so that Nigerians can have them and scrutinize them. That's just what I'll call for.
All right.
Some have argued in his favor that this might just be a sleep. Some might be able to enunciate the fact that these sleeps are getting one too many. But for us, we know it is God that gives life. It is also good that people should release their medical records so that Nigerians have a fair idea of how they are medically. And people can have the best medical record and still pass on anyway. But it is also incumbent on us to release those records for Nigerians to see.
All right, Rufai. We shall take our final story. As the redesigned naira notes become available today in banks across Nigeria, according to the policy framework released by the country's central bank, a traveler in a video now making the rounds on social media appeared to be stranded after a bus conductor in Lagos State refused to collect her new naira note. Let's take a look.
This one, even if I close eye, I will collect this one. Wow.
Okay, the other one.
Another one.
And then as soon as they're going to pass me, I can't just go work because I'm not getting the other one. I'm not getting the other one.
Enter another motor. How you go say me enter another motor?
I'm
Send a fake money to give you. Why are you passing money? Maybe one day they go start to spend the money and the day now today. Now one day you go see the money now.
Okay. Sensitization. I mean, this. I mean, I cannot independently verify this video because it just came out, this morning. Hopefully, Nigerians become more aware of the design and not have our passenger
and
get
hopefully
stranded.
the new notes will be available.
Yes.
Not that we will see the new notes at social event centers at weekends.
Dr. Abati has been advocating for this.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Ojineka.
Thank you all for your great analysis as always. Well, that's all I have for you on What's Trending today. I'll see you tomorrow.